Hello everyone, my name's Anthony. I'm a React developer, and this video I would just like to maybe briefly go over the state of React.js and go over why I think it will inevitably fall and how it might fall and why. Um, the thing is, you know, while the web industry is a new industry, it has been solidifying kind of recently. Technologies have been staying around a little longer, and which means saying React will die is a little more surprising than it used to be. I've heard in the past that these web technologies used to come and go really quickly, but if you look at React, it's been around for quite a long time, and a lot of the popular front end frameworks have been around for a long time, which kind of shows that the industries. I think that's a sign of it maturing a little bit. You know, I'm I'm a junior developer. I don't actually have a job in the industry. I just do freelancing. So you may want to take what I say with a grain of salt. But nevertheless, I have used it plenty for the business purposes. And, there are a few things I've noticed about React that I'd like to talk about in this video. So, firstly, let's go over some of the things that React did well, what it did right. The first thing it did was it made front-end development simple. Well, before React, things, you could argue that were way more simple. The web apps didn't have that much functionality, and so things were simple. With React coming out, it made making the existing type of web applications easier. And it being easier, the developers just took the opportunity to make more complicated things. And so, in a way, you're able to do more complicated things uh, easier with React. But React set the bar higher for what's expected of a web app, which kind of made it more complicated in the end. It's it's what it is. React also made it so refactoring your code was much easier. Um, when I built so I never started web development before there was React or these popular front end frameworks. So I never built. I I wasn't around back when the industry used HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and jQuery to build their apps. But when I came around, that was kind of it's not that it was outdated, but there was just the front end frameworks were uh, typically way more popular. It was just kind of a little more niche to use HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Maybe for a super small web app, but um, not not for most things that I encountered. So yeah, but before React, when I actually learned HTML, CSS, and JavaScript to build web apps, it was it was very easy to create spaghetti code and make a mess to the point where I might as well just start over my application. Um, you know, HTML and CSS, though those typically fine, but when you wanted to add advanced features like JavaScript through JavaScript, and do asynchronous API calls, and modify the DOM after those calls are made. It was very complicated. You're given with JavaScript, you're given so much freedom, and that just oftentimes when you get so much freedom in code, you often will inadvertently use that freedom to take away freedom from yourself. And that's what I did with JavaScript a lot. If you look at some of my old websites, like my portfolio site, Hoodflix, or my blog, my Singularity blog site, I really can't add new features or fix bugs. It just takes so long because it uses Node.js, EJS, and it's basically just vanilla HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And it makes it so hard to debug things because you don't know what scripts are being run. Um, yeah, I don't know what I have no easy way to organize my CSS. React is very unopinionated, but it provides just enough opinion so that I can organize my stuff and prevent bad code and fight off technical debt. So, React, it's done well for me, and I appreciate it. Is what I want to say. You often hear people say, you shouldn't go about learning React until you've learned JavaScript decently well. Well, I don't know. I was okay at JavaScript. I didn't like take any courses on JavaScript. I just moved from C Sharp to JavaScript, and then I basically kind of moved to React really quickly. And React kind of taught me how to use JavaScript better. The map function, or promises, or async await. Those I basically learned those through JavaScript and Node.js. I mean, the React and Node.js, and I didn't do what people told me to do in that regard. So sue me. Anyways, side note over. Why exactly am I bagging on React? Well, it's really because of these videos you see on screen here. These I was going about my everyday React development, and I guess I took a break at one point, and I just watched I believe it was the Fireship video, um, and that kind of opened my eyes and got me thinking. Wait a minute, maybe React isn't as great as I thought it was. A little while later, I see this podcast by Enver Maps talking about how just some developers' issues and pains they've had with React. And I thought, oh, I thought these pains I'm having with React were, I don't know, limitations of my mental ability to work with React. But no, I guess these people too are struggling. And it started this whole ball. And since then, I've kind of looked at React a bit differently. I've gone to the side, I have taken a few steps back from it and just said, sus. React it wasn't as great as it was. Its greatness was kind of fading from me. But it's done it it's still good in the end, right? I mean, it's so there's a bit of flaws that are more evident to me. It doesn't mean it's any worse. It's still really good for what it does. So what exactly are these flaws that I'm accusing React of? Well, basically, it's just one thing. One thing that causes many other issues. It's its state management system. The state management in React. It was pretty cool at first. The idea that um, you can just you can have like these variables that update the UI. So so long it was it it did its job. But here's the thing. All right, this is why I'm having a hard time saying this out loud. Um, the React states it's let's be honest. It should be like a variable. It's function that like I should be able to just change mutate of the variable and have the state update, or at least have that. Have the you mutate the state variable and have the UI update as a result. That would be the dream. Yeah, like if there's no technical limitations, that'd be perfect. That would happen in the perfect world. But that's not the case. And to be honest, I guess I can understand why that's not the case. It's just when you look at JavaScript and the way web apps work, is to just be to ask the UI to change every time you change a variable. That's a tough task. Um, I mean, yeah, but still, the way React's been has handled it, it's it's an abomination. It's- you have to install so many libraries, like context and Redux, in order to make it uh, just slightly manageable. And then from there, you have to make all these files with advanced custom hooks. And I'll admit, I give them a lot of credit. They made the states very refactorable. All the code that handles all the complicated, annoying code that makes your React an abomination can be all refactored out into its own files. That's great. That's why it's. I think that's why React has survived to this day. Because as bad as much as I don't like the state, it's you can make it manageable and you can clean it up and prevent it from destroying your apps. But still, it's a problem. And how did I really find out it was a problem? Well, I tried out Svelte, and basically Svelte's it's an alternate front end framework. It's much smaller than the popular ones out there, but I hear so much good things about it. People seem to all like it. People, it's very common to hear that it's the best one out there. Which I when it comes to web developers, or developers in general, that they typically hate to say blank is the best. You know, maybe we should try saying blank is better than blank. In blank situation. I don't know. Never mind. Let's continue on. Svelte. It basically. I've only used a little bit of Svelte. Um, just I went through their docs, tried out a few of their features, and from what I remember, its state is so much more manageable. Yes, Svelte. Yeah, from what I remember, Svelte seems to handle state much more like a variable. Um, and that, to be honest, that's kind of magic because handling state like a variable, what that means you would have to somehow update the HTML as you update a variable in JavaScript. Um, that I mean I can't really off the top of my head I can't think of any way that can be done to just have an HTML react with the changes to a JavaScript variable. Um, but Svelte does that. How, you may ask? And they do that by um, not using JavaScript to in yeah when you're using Svelte files, you're not creating JavaScript files. You're creating a custom file that gets compiled into JavaScript, which that's perfect. Well, why do we really even need to build our apps with JavaScript, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript really? Because um, yeah, to be honest, I feel like a lot of the struggles we're having with web development is just through having to build apps with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, things that really don't much get along with each other. And Svelte just went along and said, "All right, we're gonna just ditch that and just make make something that makes sense for the web." Um, so yeah, they managed to get around that issue. Uh, and that's, to be honest, Svelte being around is basically the biggest argument against React. Oh no, I finally remember my train of thought. Um, when it comes to Svelte, um, it compiles down into HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, which sounds a lot to me like how like C++ compiles down into uh, I don't know, it's called machine code or something. But the point being, you write you write the what you write your applications in doesn't have to be what your computer reads. And it's done that way so that, we can automate all the tedious stuff and confusing headaches that we really don't need to bother with. Like, well, I right um, we tend to go, as time goes on, we seem to be handling more and more higher level and abstract concepts in development, which, we might as well, because um, if we could, if there's work that can be factored out and automated out, then why not do so? So yeah, that's React. It just seems a little old to me, and it seems like it's like we're writing machine code when we have C++ around. We might as well just move on to the the next stage of web development. That being said, React is probably gonna stick around. I'd say we are at least halfway through its lifespan. It's either gonna be around right now is either the halfway marker, the 25% marker, the 12% marker. Like I think it's really just starting, but it will. I have a feeling it's going to get smaller than it is now. It's not going to stay as big as it is. Um, I'm assuming it's going to become niche. You know, Anywhere from was it came around 2013, 7 plus 2 9, maybe 2031, 2035, 2037. Around then, React is going to become niche. There's not going to be very many jobs for it. That's my prediction. That's there's just it's there's evidence that there are going to be better alternatives to React in the future. But it's going to stay around because it's big. There's a lot of demand for it. Companies invested a whole lot. There's infrastructure made for it. Giant npm package ecosystem for it. So it's going to stay around. That being said, just know I called it. I called it back in 2022 that React it's not the unstoppable juggernaut that it seems to be. Okay, well, I hope you guys enjoyed this talk. Um, you know, it's not massively informative, but I hoped it was at least entertaining. That's really the goal of my videos. To provide entertainment in the world of web development. After this is a pretty interesting subject. We have covered the educational side of things, but have we covered the entertainment side? Education will teach you how to do things, but entertainment will motivate you to do things to begin with. Anyways, do all the things you can to game the algorithm so that it will be on my side. If you do that, um, I will track you down and give you a high five and a $5 bill. All right, that's about all. Take care.